Episode 20. The Hole You Leave Behind. Introducing Dan Thomas on the BTS Creative Academy podcast. With me, your host, Martin Colton.
Yeah, there we go.
There
okay,
we go.
that's
Sweet.
comfy.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Nice.
What's really fun is that because you've got it a split out, it's like I'm coming through the left, you're coming through the right.
Through the right. So it's quite good. It keeps I feel like it keeps you in the zone.
Yeah.
It keeps you in this place. It keeps you in this environment together. So shall we begin?
Let's begin.
Okay, so at the start of this, I just do a little clap. You can join me if you want, but the clap is to sync the video and the audio together. Are you going to join me?
Yeah, I'll join you.
Yeah, we'll go on a 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, 3, 2, 1. Oh, that was pretty in sync, wasn't it, Dan?
Yeah, see, timing, mate.
So
I've been working on it.
So, Dan, thank you for joining me
on
the podcast. I appreciate you being here today. It's been a little while since I saw you last.
Yeah, I think it was when you were running your last Christmas show here, Lion, Witch and the Wardrobe, and
Yes.
I didn't get to see very much of you because you were very busy.
Yes, that was that was literally the Christmas just gone. That was a show that I was directing, and every performance there was something for me to be involved with. Very challenging production, for many different reasons. But it was very much.
It was very ambitious. I remember.
Trying to put on quite a large scale production in a small space. Lots of different elements going on, and something would either go wrong or break, or there would be something.
We're no strangers to that.
Yeah,
or
COVID made a return. So I filled in for, I think, over the 2-3 weeks run of the show, I covered about 5 different parts during that run.
That always fun.
So I was. So I think it was a passing kind of, hello, I've got to do something with this show.
It was
a moment.
It was kind of like I sort of saw the look on your face of like, he's busy. We'll catch up later.
But you brought your daughter along, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and she found it a bit scary, didn't she?
Yeah, she's just turned 5 this week, so she was only just a little way into being 4 at the time, and we keep trying to dabble with theatre with her to see, because obviously me and Nick, my wife, both massive theatre people, so we're just desperate for a child to be a theatre child.
So how are you doing that? How are you are you planting things into her subconscious, continuously playing theatre music? How's that work?
Well, I mean, one thing that definitely helped is that we played her the Matilda the musical film, which she absolutely loves, which is brilliant. So yeah, I feel like that was our first like really big win with like musical theatre for her. It's like, okay, cool. The seed has been planted, and she now knows. We play her the soundtrack in the car. She knows that there is a different soundtrack. There's the West End version and there's the movie version, and she asks for the West End version. I was like,
nice. And how old is your daughter?
Not disclaimer, not anything against the film one. The film one is very good, but obviously there's more songs on the West End one, which is very cool.
Ashamedly, I haven't seen the West End version. I need to.
Have you not?
No, I need to to see it. Yeah,
phenomenal. Easily one of the best things on the West End at the moment.
Right. Yeah. No, I need to definitely get to see that. So, how old is your daughter?
She turned 5 this week.
She's 5.
Yeah. So on Wednesday we've just gone, and it's Saturday today, viewers.
And so you would like to see her take a path similar to yourself, would you? You would.
I'd be thrilled if she did. I want her to take whatever path is her path. If that's theatre and performance. I mean, she's at Stagecoach right now, actually.
Right. Okay.
That's another win for us as well. Was when we tried to take her to a bunch of different classes of various things. Like Baby Ballers was one, like a little kids football thing. Fortunately for me, she didn't take to that because I'm not a football person at all. But it was just like trying to give her something to go and do. But yeah, we tried to do a Stagecoach, and she seems to have taken to that. She's still quite shy with it, but she likes to go to the thing and enjoy it. So she's at Stagecoach right now. I'd love it if she went down that road, but whatever path is her path is great. I mean, the one thing that she does seem to really love at the moment, she's really into art. She's like really into like drawing, colouring things in. If she's like most 5-year-olds, she has the attention span of a mayfly. Uh, but if you stick pens and pencils in front of her and coloring pens and stuff, she will actually sit there for a good while I mean, possibly like 20 minutes, but for a child that's of her attention span, that's an absolute eternity. So it's like, yes, cool, this works. So maybe that will be her path. I'm just kind of excited to see who she becomes, whether that's a theatre person or not.
So why do you think that would be of benefit for her life to become a theatre person?
I mean, it's magic, isn't it? It's I mean, it's something that I feel kind of I say a lot about about what I do as a musician as well, and about music, but I think it also applies very much to the theatre. It's like you have all of those jobs out there that our leaders would like us to get more involved with, like finance and all of the mechanics of this world. And I mean, that's all to do with like how the world is run and how the world works. Theatre and music and things, that's why we do it, right? It's the magic that we feel when we can watch something on a stage or listen to something in our ears or watch something on a screen that can transport us and can like teach us things about ourselves, or just be like fun escapist entertainment. It's all a form of magic trick that human beings have learned to do, and it's one of the most impressive things we've ever learned to do. Apologies to all of the engineers and scientists and doctors who are doing amazing things in the world, but we rule.
No, but those are all important things, and the world wouldn't go round if we didn't have those important jobs.
Absolutely.
But you do sit back and go, why do doctors save lives?
What's it all for?
What's it all for? And for me, that comes back to art.
Yeah.
In whatever form that is. Would you not agree?
Yeah, no, that's that's absolutely the point. The same point I'm making. Yeah, it's like this is. I mean, obviously, different strokes for different folks, but this sort of thing is like this is why we. This is why we do everything else. This is what makes it all worth living. Obviously, with like coupled with like friends and family and like community connections and everything. But that very much links into the theatre, the screen, and the stage with regards to excuse me, music. It kind of helps. What's the word I'm looking for? It kind of binds communities and keeps people together and brings people together in a way that sort of strengthens all of those bonds that make life important. And I'm probably massively overselling this.
No,
How bad can the language get on this podcast?
We'll take it where it goes.
Okay. Yeah, it's the sort of thing that my wife calls wanky. I have a tendency to say very wanky things, and like I catch myself saying something particularly artsy and neckbeardy and whatever, and I'll just go, yeah, that was another wanky thing, wasn't it? And she's like, yeah.
Well, maybe there is some value in what you're saying, and there's something that needs to be said, because I do feel that there is an agenda from, let's say, the government.
Absolutely.
That we've spoken about it many times with many creative people on this podcast so far, that during COVID, for instance, they told everyone creative to go out and learn cyber.
Oh God, yeah, that's the thing that came into my head. That bloody tube poster.
Yeah, whilst at a moment that everyone was at home, that was looking for some form of escapism, was throwing themselves into box sets on Netflix, that was reading books, listening to music. That was the enjoyment of life at that period of time. But yet the people that are supposed to be looking out for us were saying, no, that's no good, that career, that pastime. Don't do that. Go and be sitting on a computer.
Yeah, it's like they don't see they see the world in terms of like what makes monetary sense, what makes people money, and then to that I'd say they forget that the arts are billion-pound generating industries. They seem to forget that it does actually carry a financial price tag to it that spreads out throughout the economy anyway. But yeah, they just see it in terms of oh, what can people earn the most money doing, and how can we get more hedge fund managers and investment bankers? Because we need more of those. Apparently,
Yeah.
no offense to anyone who has those jobs. I'm sure you work hard at what you do, but
And
yeah,
again, like it's important for everything ticking by and everything moving forward. But again, let's go back to why.
yeah.
Why is it important that this world keeps moving forward in the way that it
I
is?
mean, again, possibly controversial take. I'd say I'd argue about whether that particular subset, the ones I mentioned, whether that is actually important. Because if you look at COVID, this popped into my head when we were talking about COVID. If you look at all of the jobs that the whole world closed down, right? But there were certain industries that had to keep going because otherwise the whole of society falls apart completely.
Mhm.
I didn't see any hedge fund managers within that list. I don't know if you did, but
No.
it's like we we were. I heard a lot of it. It was said at the time, "Oh, we've learned who, who the important, what the really important jobs are," and I would argue that we're very much not long after the whole thing's ended, because it's only really been what, a year and a half since life started returning somewhat to
Yeah. So at this point,
normal.
we're it was about it started about 4 years ago now, three
Oh
and a
my
half, 4
god,
years ago. No, that's crazy.
that's mental, right?
Um,
Where's that gone?
I know. Yeah, it's warped time, hasn't it? That experience in
Yeah,
our lives.
2020 onwards,
It
my perception of time is
just
completely ruined.
yeah, it has. It's really changed things.
But I would say that, we said a lot of the time, like, oh yeah, we now really know, we know what all the really important jobs are. I am worried we're in danger of forgetting a lot of the lessons that
Hmm.
we talked about, that we were learning through COVID, and that we could we're going to take some positives out of this. We can reorder the way that we live our lives and reprioritize things. And I think, sadly, but somewhat unsurprisingly, a lot of that's just kind of fallen by the wayside, along with the desire to kind of get back to normal. We've missed, or are in danger of missing, some opportunities. Some things have stuck, like the home working thing. I feel like
Hmm.
that's because my day job as a pensions administrator. I know I'm part of the man as well. Um, my tour manager says that all the time. It's like, you work for the man, dude. But yeah, in that job, obviously before COVID, as a pensions administrator, like, they wouldn't even consider letting people work from home because, like, the phone element and the confidential information element to it, and it was just almost too much to kind of for them to contemplate.
Mm.
When COVID came along, and all of a sudden it's like
You have no
you
choice.
have no choice.
Mm.
Once it's amazing when these people's feet are held to the fire, what they can come up with and how creative they can be
Hmm.
in order to keep the money coming in. And it's like that genie now can't be put back in the bottle. It's like a lot of companies. Disclaimer: the ones that I've worked for have been pretty good, actually. Both I changed jobs during the pandemic, and both my previous employer and my current employer have been really good with this sort of thing. But there are so many companies now who are attempting to say, right, everyone back in the office 5 days a week, and it's like, dude, you can't do that.
Did you learn nothing?
Yeah, like, and
Yeah.
also you can't make the same arguments of like, oh, people aren't productive anymore,
Hmm.
because, like, a lot of the numbers were coming in, and that a lot of the time people weren't any less productive. Some
Yeah.
people were more productive. I also accept that it's not a one size fits all thing, and that some people really thrive better in the office environment,
Hmm.
but some people, particular people who get like social anxiety or whatever, they will do much better. They'll be able to do their job just as well or better
Hmm.
from home. And the idea that now, like, we have to just pretend none of that happened and go back to doing it 5 days a week because uh, people have got like business portfolios of like commercial properties to rent out, and they need to keep that money coming in. It's like, sorry, we've things have got to change. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, I think for the most part, it has, a lot of that's remained. At least
Hmm.
you got, at least most places seem to now have some form of like hybrid. In fact, most office work, I have to say, um, has got some form of hybrid working situation going. But
Hmm.
yeah, it does seem there's an attempt I don't want to get too cynical and tinfoil hat about it, but there's an attempt by some people to just go, let's pretend none of that ever happened, and let's go back to the way things were because we liked everything the way things were. But the rest of us are kind of like, well, maybe there's a few things we could change and move around a bit and reorder our lives. Me and my wife have definitely reprioritized a lot of the way we live our life because of COVID. We gear it a lot more around like being at home with our child and as keeping like the family together and making sure we've got time for each other. Yeah, I mean, I could go into a lot of detail about like things that have happened with my family life in terms of how things have changed. But maybe we'll cover some of that later on.
Yeah, I remember like pre-COVID, there was in jobs that I've done in the past, there was always this talk of find a good work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I feel potentially for some people, COVID has forced a better work-life balance.
Yeah.
That actually life is the important bit.
Yeah.
It
comes back to why do we do all this?
Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this job? A lot of people in high pressure jobs. Why are we doing this high pressure jobs that takes up all of our time?
Yeah.
And then they've got a family as well, or they want to have a family, or they've got friends. What's happening with all that part of the life?
Yeah, you don't want to get so bogged down with the how to make money and how to like get all the building blocks there so that you can live a good life without and forget how to actually have a good life, and that you're doing all of this for a reason, and the reason is, well, different things to different people, but it's like you got to sit and ask yourself, what do you actually want? What do you want out of life? And if it is like the nice car, the nice house, all of like the material
things.
I'm not. I mean, I'm a fairly. You well know I'm fairly left leaning, but like I'm not going to disparage people who want those things. If you want those things, go for it. That's absolutely fine. But everyone has to make sure that they're asking themselves the question of what is it you want and how do you best go about that? And a lot of the time, especially for me and my wife, it's like, well, it's not best served by chasing after that promotion, getting that better paid job. It's like we have simpler tastes, if you like with less expensive tastes, and we'd rather prioritize different things, and that's okay, just as much as it's okay that there are people out there who would prioritize all of those things that I just mentioned. I don't want to crap on anyone's way that they want to live life, as long as they're not, hurting anybody.
All I would say though, like, it's not crapping on someone's life the way that, those people that want money, want a nice car and things, but over the years, the people that I've seen that have strived for that and have got that nice car, have got that big house, have got lots of money sitting in the bank, more often than not, those are the ones that I've seen most unhappy.
Because they don't have time to enjoy it. Yeah.
Because it's never enough. That car is never enough. That house is never enough. That money in the bank is never enough, because it didn't actually do what they were hoping it would do.
No, it's because it's kind of a way that human beings work in general. It's like the fact that we're always we kind of have that innate desire to kind of struggle for the next thing that we want to either acquire or accomplish, and it has helped. It's part of the reason that we have all of this, like the world that we live in, good and bad, but like all of the great things that have come through always wanting to push for more, to achieve more, to acquire more, or just to push those boundaries forward. But it's also kind of been hacked in a negative way as well, in the fact that, just like you say, you think, I want this thing is the thing that's going to make my life better, or going to make me feel whole or complete, or something ephemeral like that. And then you get it and you appreciate it for a bit, and it's like, yes, this is amazing, this is great. And then of course, like the shine will fade off of it, because it's not you've achieved it now. That's no longer the thing that's driving you. And then you kind of go, well, now what next? And then you kind of have to find something else to to direct that energy to. I mean, and I think that everybody's affected that. Just some people it goes towards material things, and like you said, I kind of agree that when it's directed towards that material sort of stuff, that's the sort of thing that makes people unhappy.
Yeah.
But then and then some people will do it as it will manifest as like as a goal that they want to achieve instead, or something within their personal life. They think, I want to do that thing, and then that thing will actually, if it's rooted in your own sense of well-being and that of the people that you love and care about in your community, then that will actually bring more lasting joy to you, I think.
Yeah, that sounds
I'm
fair.
possibly talking nonsense, but disclaimer, viewer, all of my opinions are my own, and they're almost certainly, some of them, going to be absolute rubbish.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the beauty of this, though. This sitting down and having it. We're just having a conversation. We're just being open, and we're just having these thoughts within this moment that we're sitting in right here. And yeah, we're I'd say both me and you are people that are very open to the fact that we're educated in life, maybe not in philosophy.
I went to the School of Life, mate. School of Hard Knocks.
Exactly.
I'm from Harlow. I know the school.
Yeah, we've grown
Grew
up.
up here.
Yeah, yeah, we've grown up, and we're experiencing this thing as we go along, and we're just taking some viewpoints on it. That's all.
I think you might need to put an asterisk next to the word "grown up."
Yeah, that does it. Yeah, that's that doesn't count.
You're wearing a Masters of the University.
Oh yeah, that's me regressing. That's me going.
Oh man, I've said quite a few times that
as I'm hitting 40 next year, I'm going, no, I'm going backwards, not forwards.
Similarly, like I did the maths. Like my daughter was born when I was 32, so I did the maths. In the same year that I turned 50, she turns 18. So, I mean, obviously, I know that a parent's job does not finish when the moment they turn 18. We don't live in that kind of society anymore. We go, right, off you pop, get out. But as soon as I go, right, okay, she is legally an adult at that point. So the when I turn 50 and she turns 18, like my 40s are going to be spent like being like she'll be, when I turn 40, she'll be 7 going on 8. So yeah, I'll just be a nervous wreck of a human.
As I am
my 40s.
As I am right now, with a 14-year-old daughter, and my son's turning 18 next month. So
I remember him being born. That's mental.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Oh, and I remember your daughter like hiding your pet cat in a toy oven when she was like 2.
Yeah, she still does that kind of thing.
And Gemma being like, where's Chloe? Where's the cat? And she's like, I don't know. Like, Chloe, where is the cat? But I'm just, my 40s are going to be spent just being like a nervous wreck of a human. But then as soon as I hit 50, as soon as I am no longer legally responsible for her, I'm going to be like having like a second 20s.
Yeah.
I was I am going to be such an immature shit when I am like in my 50s. I'll be so embarrassing.
No, I definitely don't think it ends, having seen, looking at my parents, for example, and they've had 4 children, and we're all grown up, and they're in their they're in their 70s now, and they definitely still look after us all. If you're a good parent, you don't switch off at that point of a certain age.
I'm 37. My sister is 35. My parents are very much still a part of like caring for us in a sense, like especially like they like my parents do a lot with my daughter. They put in a lot of like childcare work with her when Nick and I are both working. But yeah, they still look after us. Like if I've got like these, because this is one of my gigging shirts, because this is a carefully crafted stage image, this but yeah, they get a little bit musty, let's put it that way. And yeah, occasionally if I'm having trouble washing the aroma away, I go to my mum. My mum magically gets rid of it. I'm like, what alchemy are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing everything you're doing, I'm sure. But yeah, there's certain magic that your parents can still manage.
I think there comes a point where you go from being a kind of a guide and a leading force in their life to a carer. You're no longer trying to show them some direction. You'll yes, around 18, maybe in their early 20s, you can hopefully, you've guided them enough that you can take a seat, sit back, and you can just care and love.
Yeah,
That's the hope.
I'm gonna use a film reference that you enjoy. It's like you become like a consigliere instead.
What's the reference?
That's Godfather, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's like Tom Hagen in The Godfather. You become like that. It's like
yes,
you're just there, kind of like, see, because these chairs are very Godfather.
they
That's
are.
probably
Aren't
what's
they?
made me think of it. But it's like you're just more you're kind of giving advice instead of like, and that advice is no longer don't put that fork in the plug socket. It's now
hopefully
like,
you've said that enough. Like again,
well, hopefully you haven't had to have said it.
No, I have. my daughter has been on a self-destruct mission from the day she was born. So
I know, I'm familiar with Chloe, and yes,
Yes.
and whilst she
Oh,
might
and
not
she would.
know much about me, because most of what I saw from Chloe is
You
when
was very young, yeah.
she was very young. So yeah, she might look at me and go, "Oh yeah, you're vaguely familiar."
Who's that? Who's that man with the beard?
Who's that bald prick?
Yeah.
Similarly with Alex as well.
Yeah.
Actually, Alex might remember a little bit more, but
No, but I had two very different children. He could sit in a room full of knives and broken glass, and he'd sit there and you'd say, "Don't touch that," and he'd sit there and it'd be good.
I'm lucky Amelia's like that.
He wouldn't touch it. But you do the same with Chloe, and then when you've got hell, she would be inquisitive, and she would want to see what that glass would cut and break, and and so yeah, they're two very different human beings, which is lovely as well to have that kind of contrast and those challenges.
My daughter and her cousin, my sister's little girl, Molly, who is a year and a week to the day younger than Amelia. Similar thing. They've got like very different like temperaments and very different kind of. They will respond to things in a different way. Like my parents' house that they lived in when the girls were babies to like early toddlers, they were it had like an old like brick fireplace. So and my daughter Amelia was like the first grandchild to the family, and my parents and me and Nick were absolutely bricking it about that old brick fireplace, which had like, at the time we didn't usually have much of a gate on it, and there were like a bunch of like fire stoking tools and things, and we were like, oh my god, she's gonna smack her head on that, and she's gonna injure herself, dude. She never paid it one bit of attention. All of the times that she was ever over at my parents' house, couldn't care less. Molly, on the other hand, my niece, she would always make a beeline for it. She'd be like, "Oh, what's this doing?" Like, okay, no, we need to keep you away from it.
Yeah.
Amelia, you're fine. Molly, get away from there, please. And that's when we start putting gates around it. But yeah, they're different. It's amazing how like they've all got their own personalities, and they're all so different. That's one of the things I remember thinking about when we were expecting Amelia. I told Amelia this the other day. It's like, do you think to yourself?
She was getting to that age now where you can sit down and have a conversation about things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she's taking things in now, and like you can say. I remember saying like, I wonder what my child's going to look like. I wonder what her smile is going to look like. I wonder who she's going to be, and it's like, and it's really fun reflecting on that, and then looking and going and beginning to get like that sense of, when they're just like between, say, like 3 and 7 or whatever, when they're really starting to like, oh, there's a person who's like starting to emerge out of this, because like when they're babies, they're lovely. Disclaimer there.
They're little shits.
God, yes, they are.
They're difficult. Yeah, don't lie, Dan. Don't lie to anyone that hasn't got children yet.
Well, do you know what?
It's hard work.
That does remind me of when I was in the run up between and telling everyone that we were expecting and to Amelia being born. All of the dads I spoke to, it was the same sort of conversation. They would all list the ways in which it was completely and utterly fucking awful, and then it would cap it off with, "But it's beautiful, magical. Wouldn't change it for the world."
Yeah,
it's like, really? Are you sure?
Yeah, it is a real bizarre thing, isn't it? Being a parent, in that, yeah, it's the hardest job in the world, but the most rewarding job that you'll ever have.
Yeah, the reward to effort ratio is sometimes a little bit skewed, but
yes.
But those rewards, when you get them, you just go, yes, okay, cool. This is why I do this. And I suppose that's why when the rewards have to be that good to keep you doing it, because you wouldn't put in that much effort on anything else for just that much just grief
Mm.
because it is like it's a job. It's hard. It is hard work.
Mm.
And disclaimer, love my daughter, but yeah, she can be a fucking pain in the tits.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's when you've got children that you care about. There's literally no one that you'd want to see happier, succeed more, do better. When you you have this kind of this hope for their future,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah, it's,
And that goes back to the way that you're trying to guide her on the things that you've had in your life that have been good for you.
yeah,
You've had this creative life and you've seen that as a benefit to you. So you're like, of course, I'm going to guide my daughter this way.
yeah.
So, where did this start for you? Where did this creative life start for you? Because it's music, there's been acting. W- Where was the beginning of that?
I try and pinpoint it exactly. There's I guess it was no one thing, but it's a kind of a multitude of things. I'd say my mum reminds me that when I was 6 years old, I went on we went on a family holiday to Malta because we had kind of various connections to uh, family like history and stuff with Malta because my dad was was an Air Force brat and they moved around a lot, and so therefore my granddad kind of had connections and stuff out there. And we were on a family holiday out there. And to give this context, I had recently, yes, as a 6-year-old, watched the movie Gremlins 2: The New Batch.
Yes.
And
How funny. So, are we the same age?
I'm a
You're
little bit younger.
Yeah.
I'm Gemma's age.
Yeah, okay, so you're about 2 years younger. Because that was like my first horror film as well.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt your
No,
story,
absolutely. No,
but that
let's go
just
for
threw
it.
me back to a story of me of my. I was at my older sister took me to the cinema to see that.
Blimey.
But she sat me in the cinema and she popped off somewhere.
Were you legally allowed to
I
go and
don't
see that
think
film?
so.
I'm pretty sure that
I
that's.
don't think so. But this was like my first. Yeah, my
Although
first.
that one's a PG, isn't it? The first one's a fit like a 15.
But that one's a PG, but it's still quite scary to an 8-year-old.
Yeah, it's more of a zany comedy. That
And
one, but yeah,
I really enjoyed it, but at the same time, I was absolutely petrified. I need to. She's next on the podcast, my sister.
Oh, is she really? Oh,
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
so I'm gonna have to have a chat to her about that and say, do you remember how impactful leaving me in the cinema to watch the Gremlins was? But,
I bet she doesn't even remember doing that.
No.
She'd just be like, "Did I?"
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, "Yeah,
Yes.
that changed my goddamn life." And it's like, that's just a Wednesday afternoon for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Sorry, continue with your
go for it.
story. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I watched Gremlins 2: The New Batch for the first time, and there's the bit that always stuck in my memory, particularly then, was because you have the brainy gremlin, don't you? The one who takes the serum and becomes intelligent. He starts crooning Frank Sinatra. Does New York, New York, and you've got like the rest of the Gremlins as a chorus going la 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 la, and that was like, oh, this is fun. I like this. And I remember like going into school and like teaching all of the kids in my class to do that la 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 la, much to the teachers' fucking annoyance. But yeah, so I got up as a 6-year-old. They had a karaoke night, and I asked to get up and do New York, New York by Frank Sinatra. And my mum and my dad, like they will still say now, like my mum particularly, she'll say that we were gobsmacked, like just the confidence you had to get up and do it, and in front of all of those people when you were 6. It's like, oh, well, maybe that's his thing. Because I think that at this point they'd tried me on football and didn't work. My granddad, who passed away earlier this year, always used to say the funniest thing he'd ever seen was when the ball got passed to me when I was just sort of standing there minding my own business, and I looked up and I saw the other boys playing football running towards me, and my instinct was just to run in the opposite direction and leave the ball where it was. My granddad, who was watching, he said it's the funniest thing I've ever seen, and yeah, he maintained that until the day he died.
That's funny saying that as well, because that's my experience of football is very similar. And I wonder if this is something about creative people. So my experience of being put in a football club when I was young, I was standing near the goal, and it was my job to be the defender, and everyone else was at the other end. And everyone running towards me with this ball.
It's terrifying, right?
And as that ball and herd of kids was coming towards me, I just opened my legs because I was like, I want nothing to do with that. and the ball just went straight underneath and in the goal, and everyone
everyone's
was
like, "What are you
"What have you
doing?"
done?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "This is not my thing, really.
Yeah,
This is not." I knew at that point
they
that,
learned really quickly
yeah,
that football was not for me. And also I don't know if it was just a cheap kit or whatever, but the Arsenal kit that my mum put me in was itchy as fuck, man. Like those collars, like they're not
yes,
comfortable. I
yeah.
don't know if they've changed in 30 years. Maybe they
Mhm.
have, but yeah, that
Yeah, those
wasn't.
90s football kits. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
early 90s. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm not. Apologies, mum, if it was actually a genuine thing, but like I have a feeling it
It
was
was
like a cheap knockoff
no,
one
yes,
that
yeah.
because we weren't
They
made
were
of money.
well, they were very popular in the 90s as well, weren't
They
they?
were,
The
yeah.
knockoff football kits.
But yeah, you see, like in my experience of that at that time being 6 is like when you see like a group of like other boys who are like, I think some of them might have even been a little bit bigger than me, same sort of age but bigger. But like, you see big lads running towards you, it's like I'm about to get hurt. I need to get out of it. I don't like pain. I'm not. I was never like a rough and tumble kid. That just
Mhm.
wasn't. This just wasn't me. And yeah, I've learned a lot about me and how my brain works and everything to like know now because I have a diagnosis of ADHD, and like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, lots of my childhood makes a lot more sense now
Yeah.
because it just turns out that my brain's just wired a little bit differently.
Mhm.
But yeah, so they learnt around the same time that, oh, maybe performance is going to be his thing. So like I'd go to like various little like acting like after school things, or like I also, one other thing was when I was like 8 or 9, the school did a Christmas play of Babushka, and I was one of the 3 kings in that, and I memorized not only all of my lines but everybody else's. And so when we were rehearsing and people would make mistakes, actually it wasn't relegated to just rehearsal. I was told I was doing this on stage during the actual performance as well. When people would forgot a line, I thought I was being really secret squirrel, and with my upstage arm be like, I thought I was being like really kind of like, if I use my, I didn't know the terminology then, but if I use this arm, use my upstage arm and point a little bit just behind my leg, they'll see, but the people in the audience, they won't see a thing. Because obviously I didn't have any idea of how people's eyes worked. And yeah, my mum said like, yeah, it was, you could tell that you were the one who knew, and you were on the on-stage prompt for everybody else. And that's one of the main ones I remember of like, oh, okay, this I like this. I thrive on this, and I could somehow memorize all these lines because it was like something that I was interested in. And then what did I do after that? I remember when I was 12, I went to I don't know, it was something like Stagecoach. It wasn't Stagecoach. It was like that sort of thing. It was a Sunday afternoon thing for my mum and dad to get me out of the house from 2 till 5. And they would do like they do termly stints, and then like at the end of each term, which would usually coincide with like Christmas, Easter, summer, we do a production of sorts. And then one of my first ones of those was at the Harlow Playhouse, in the upstairs theatre that was there. And that was like going into the Harlow Playhouse was like, oh, this is
Because it's
like,
it's a big space, isn't it?
it is, even that
Yeah.
upstairs one, like
Yeah.
at the time that at the studio theatre.
Mhm.
And then when you get to do a show at like I mean, you've done many of them,
Mhm.
in the studio and the theatre. But yeah, you go to that main auditorium with like like a 400 capacity room, and I remember seeing shows there when I was very little. I think the first one I saw was like a Postman Pat show when I was maybe like 2 or 3.
Mhm.
It's like,
Mine was City and Sweet.
hey, yes, mate, that's amazing. I think I saw like an Orville the Duck show there at one point as
Mm.
well. I don't know if it was like the official thing, but I remember the
Yeah,
puppet looking like the real deal.
Mhm.
But yeah, and you sort of go into that space and you go, you just sort of like being sort of struck by like the awe. There is power, friends, in standing on a stage and
Oh.
just like looking out. It is a form of like, I'd put it akin to a spiritual
Mhm.
experience.
It
It's like,
changed my life.
yeah,
Accidentally walking onto the main stage of the Playhouse was a a groundbreaking moment for me. Changed the complete direction in my life
Mm-hmm.
just from accidentally walking out onto the main stage at the Playhouse. Um, I was about 15, 16, and I was in the Air Cadets. And I won't go into the full story now. But
Tell me
essentially,
as much as you like. I don't actually know this story.
you don't know this
No,
story.
I don't.
Okay, so I'm about 15, 16, and I'm in the Air Cadets, and my hopes and dreams for the future at that time was to be in the RAF.
Right.
Very much so dedicated to that. That was the goal. And I had this best friend at school. He wasn't interested in that kind of stuff. However, we both did have another similar interest at that time, which was girls.
15, 16. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, and but we were very terrible at communicating with them, and we didn't have the.
I don't find this relatable content whatsoever.
And at school, yeah, the girls obviously had developed an opinion of us and wasn't very interested, and things weren't going so well. And anyway, he had some connections with the Playhouse. His mother worked there.
Do I know this person, by the way?
I think you do. Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. I'm not sure.
Is this? Should we do the name off air? Off
Yeah,
the
there's
record?
no. He was my best friend back at school, Jamie Anderson.
Oh, Jamie. Yeah, I
Don't
remember
know if you-
Jamie.
yeah.
Yeah. I wondered if it was. I thought, hang on, I probably
Yeah.
know who this is, don't I?
Yes, yeah. So he was going to this drama group like your stagecoach or whatever, and a new one started in the Playhouse, the Playhouse Young People's Theatre,
Remember that one.
and he'd gone along to like the first opening night of this new Young People's Theatre group, and he came back the next day and he sat down to me next to me in class, and he's like, I think I've stumbled on something here. I went to this theatre thing last night, and there was about 40 other people there, all ranging from the age of about 14 to 18.
I know exactly where this is going. I'm sure I do.
I was the only other boy. I was the only
Yes.
boy. I was the only male there. And I was like, he was like, I was in my element, and like none of these girls know me. And he was like, you should come, and like none of these girls will know us. And
They don't have preconceived notions about who you are. They're
have-
not connected to school or
and-
anything.
And they're all quite fun, and like there's some nice girls there, and you should come along. And I was like, I'm sold.
Sold, yeah,
sold, mate.
goddamn right.
Like at no point in that day was I thinking, oh, theatre, that's something interesting, or acting or whatever. It was just purely my hormones and my adolescent mind.
How many
telling
great
me to-
actors and directors do you think that sort of impulse is responsible for, though?
Yes,
Like, the thing
yeah.
of like, might get laid.
Yeah,
Might,
so-
or like even in our nerdy states, like might get to kiss a girl.
yeah, or they might look at me or pay
Yeah.
me attention or whatever.
They
but,
might smile at me.
Yeah, so anyway, I turned up at the Playhouse, and actually all the doors of the Playhouse were shut. As I turned up, all the lights were off,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, maybe I've turned up on the wrong night. I waited around for my friend, and he didn't show up. And then I noticed, I remember quite vividly, there was like a note stuck to one of the windows that
Right.
said, please, if you're here for the Playhouse Young People's Theatre, enter by the back door. I was like, oh, shit. No one around, very quiet, go around to the back. I think I was a little bit late. I think it was about half hour late. Go around the back. Never been in the Playhouse before.
It's amazing if you've never been there before.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I'd never been at this time. Like, I'd seen a show there as a kid, Sooty and Sweep, but that was it. So I didn't know where I was going when I entered through the back door. Went through the back door, up the first flight of steps, and there were some doors in front of me. So I went through them, and it was all very dark, and I was a bit, trepidation.
I'm following
yeah,
you in my
and,
mind map.
and,
I know exactly all
and I'm
of
going
this.
through the doors and go through some curtains. It's all very dark. And I see some light, and I'm like, okay, I'll follow the light because that's surely going to get me somewhere. Anyway, I walk out onto the main stage of the Playhouse, and they've got their spotlights on. And that's it. There's no one else in there. And I stood under the spotlights and looked around and was just... it took my breath away. And I knew in that moment, this was my new place. This was my home.
That's your church, man.
Yeah, that's my church. There was this fear of walking in there, that had just gone within that moment of standing under the spotlights. I don't know if my ego was born in that moment. My ego went, "Hello, I'm here. I am now going to perform." And yeah, I was just like, wow. Like, there was no one there.
Yeah.
Um,
But you get that sense, the sense of like the majesty and the aura of
yeah,
it, don't you? You just you walk on and you go, oh yeah, this is a form of like
there was an atmosphere.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's something ephemeral, isn't it? It's something like you can't touch,
Hmm.
you can't even describe, but it's there and you
Yeah.
feel it. It's like you've just discovered you're a Jedi and you felt the Force for the first time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Feel it flowing through you.
Anyway, I went on to join the Young People's Theatre. Got a girlfriend by the end of the week, so and I'm still doing
Yeah.
theatre to this day.
Yeah.
So a happy ending to
And
it.
we've had many wonderful productions out of it, man. It's
Yeah.
I'm fortunate. I'm thankful for experiences like that for people because, like I said, you get like how many great actors and directors were born out of just that desire to, like, if nothing else, like, I might meet a girl who doesn't think I suck.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
who doesn't know anything about who I am. I'm no longer as awkward looking as I was as a small child
Mhm.
to early preteen. And some girl might actually look at me and think I'm not hideous. I feel like all these things I'm saying right now, I sometimes wonder, is like, if I'd been born slightly later, could I have potentially become an incel?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to think not, but like, yeah, some of the like, just the things from like growing up is like, yeah, that could have gone very differently had I not had like the lucky breaks to not send me down that sort of path.
So take me back to those lucky breaks then that you had. So you were
Yes.
part of the stage group
Yep.
doing that.
Yeah, we did.
Then how did that keep you into doing theatre? How did that drive you forward?
Well, yes, I got to do a bunch of shows at the Playhouse, first in the studio theatre, then on the main auditorium, which, as we've said, is a form of magic because it's like a proper theatre. But yeah, then I kept doing that sort of thing for a while, and then moved on to doing. I got cast in a Sawbridgeworth Players show, which went on in this wonderful theatre in this building when I was 14. I'm trying to think. I think it must have been my mum who found out about the Sawbridgeworth Players and saw that they were casting.
And so
something.
they were a community theatre company.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Sawbridgeworth is a small village town, the next town over from here. It's separated by the big old place that the Beckhams used to live once upon a time. Don't know if they still do. You may have to cut that bit out of the podcast. That was weird. But yeah, small village nearby. And yeah, so it's the next town over. So obviously there's a lot of back and forth that kind of comes between Harlow and Sawbridgeworth. So yeah, my mum found out that they were casting for a show. They did a production in the year 2000 in this place called Lost in Yonkers, which is a Neil Simon play that is pretty good. You should go and check that out. Yeah, so they were still missing. It's about two boys who in like 1942 in New York, whose dad, their widowed dad, gets a job selling scrap iron for the army, and he can't take his boys with him for that, so he leaves them with his very strict German Jewish mother, their grandmother, to care for them, who the boys are both terrified of. So it's just about their time living with the grandma. It's like one of those, very much one of those like kitchen sink kind of things, and they are introduced to the various like their aunts and uncles, one of whom is potentially a mafia connected crook, one who, the youngest, who is kind of she's impaired, she's kind of mentally impaired in a fashion that I cannot remember how, and there's another aunt who grew up so terrified of her mother that she finishes all of her sentences by breathing inwards, and as she's finishing, like, because I can't remember. It's like the grandma told her like she like breathed too loud in her sleep or something and punished her for it. It's something to do with that. So she has like they've all basically the thing is they've all got problems because of how terrifying this grandmother was. But yeah, they were looking for one of the boys in that, and my mum put me forward for that. I went and auditioned, got that, and that was supposed to be at I think is it the Bullfield Theatre in Sawbridgeworth? But they had an asbestos problem at the time, so they were shopping around for another place to put the show on, and they landed on this place. And that was Sawbridgeworth Players' first production in here, and afterwards they did almost all of their productions in here because the Victoria Hall is a wonderful theatre that you should visit because it is all run by a charitable trust and run by volunteers, and it is a wonderful community project that you should support if you're anywhere near Harlow.
Thank you for that.
Doing some marketing.
Doing some plugging in there.
Just plug this beautiful theatre. It's given me so much.
Oh, same here. And that's why I give so much to it.
Yeah.
Because of what I've received, I must
pay
continue.
It forward.
Yeah.
Right? Pay it forward. If I still lived in Harlow, I'd probably be doing the same. But so yeah, I did that show, and that was wonderful, and that was like, that felt like just another step forward into like proper acting. Like again, not to be disparaging of the group that I was part of before.
No, but there's something different with doing a drama school group thing.
Yeah.
To when you join a community theatre.
Yeah, that one was very much for kids.
Or joining an acting group, and you start getting involved with adults, and you start getting involved with people that have this as part of their life.
Yeah, it's not like there's theatre for kids, which is brilliant and wonderful and an absolutely amazing thing, because it like some of those kids will then go on to go through the ranks, as it were, and like and some of them soar to like the heights of being like at some of the faces of the industry in our country. But this one was like I think it was my first experience of like working, like being with other adults and being an equal. That, I think, this is just occurring to me now as I'm thinking about it, is that I was 14, I think. Yes, 14. And it's like I was very much, I wasn't just a kid that was there. I wasn't a child to these people. I mean, I was, but like at the same time, it's like I was very much a part of the cast and therefore an equal. I was met as an equal. I was spoken to as an equal. And the thing I find fascinating is that play was directed by a lady named Jean Foster, who is Steve Foster's mum. And she, I found out later, had a reputation for being terrifying. That she was a hard taskmaster who would really push people and really kind of like get quite grumpy with people who she felt weren't pulling their weight or anything. And she was always lovely to me. She was like another grandparent almost. And again, she did work me hard, and there were times that she did have to kind of like rein me in, being a 14-year-old with undiagnosed ADHD. But like I had such like a warmth and like depth of feeling for Jean and from Jean as well. And so like working with somebody who is like, she was a great director as well. She gave you like really, really good notes for things. And yeah, so that was part of it as well. It's like it's kind of coming, as you've experienced, when you're part of like a company of actors for something. You go, yeah, I feel I'm an equal. I'm a part of this, and we're making something. We're making something on a stage which is not tangible. And once it's done, once you've done that show, it's gone, and it was a moment in time. But at that moment in time, it's a form of, I know I keep saying it, but it's magic. It's like it's memories that live on for people. Like you and I did Dracula together, and people talk about that show still to this day. And I remember that show as being something like really special. I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit in the story, but that show was.
There's something about when you do community theatre, you build a family.
You do.
Yeah, a family, and you build these connections that are unique and unlike anything else. in any other walk of life. Like, you can't get that. I've never experienced that within any job. I never experienced that within any place of education. I've never experienced that within a normal group of friends. But when you put a show on and you have a 6 to 8 weeks window of time that you spend with this group of people, or sometimes more. Some shows I've done, like we
Like
spoke
12
about,
weeks, yeah.
yeah, last show I did, Lion Witch and the Wardrobe. We spent 4 months, group of people together, 50 of us, 4 months.
It was a big cast, that show.
Yeah, 4 months of our life, 50 of us, all used our spare time to create this show.
Yeah.
And within that 4 months, we became a family.
Yeah, you do.
And
it can sometimes be a bit of a temporary family.
yeah,
as well,
sometimes
'cause,
you split off into all different directions, but sometimes you might keep one or two connections that are born from that will last for the rest of your life.
Robin Hood is a great example of that.
Definitely,
like
yeah.
when you and I did that here in 2010, it was a Christmas show.
Was that the first time we did a show together?
I think it was, yeah.
Like, we knew each other before that.
I'd seen you in Dracula. I know you.
Yeah. So I
You love this story.
I
You love this so much.
Go on, you tell the story of when we first met.
Okay. I might be. You remember this a lot more clearly than I do, but I would say from what I remember, and also from what you've said over the years, is that because you were in Dracula long before you ever directed it. When this must have been not long after this transformative experience that you.
Yeah, it was one of the first. It was the third play for the Young People's Theatre.
Yeah,
so it was about a year into doing amateur dramatics.
Yeah, so I had been about 15 at the time, and you were about 17, 18 around then. And that was in the studio theatre at the Playhouse, and you were Renfield in Dracula, and a lot of your stuff, a lot of that part, for people who don't know the show, Renfield kind of performs to himself a lot of the time. Not performs to himself. The character is very much on stage alone, doing monologues, insane monologues, because Renfield is mad and he's in an insane asylum. And just your performance was just so goddamn captivating. It was like, you were fascinating to watch, and it's one of the things that sticks in my head from that show. The other thing is Munns rising from the coffin as Dracula, because to me, in my head, he looks like that's what Dracula looks like. But yeah, and I remember coming, wanting to talk to you, almost like starstruck at the end, and being like, I just wanted to say I thought you were really cool.
Yeah, but that was a big moment to me, because at that kind of age, you don't get people the same age of you saying well done. Again, like when you're at school and when you're in education and things like that, you do things and everyone just accepts what you're doing. But for a stranger of the same age group to come up to you and go like, you did well there, I really appreciate what you did, was kind of a moment that took me back.
Yeah,
that was like, oh, like, thank you.
I never realized how much that meant to you.
Yeah, no, it did, and I think it's really important that we do that. That I try to put that onto my kids, for them to do that to others, to raise people up.
Yeah,
because in fact, that might have been part of my ego being born there again, but it was important for me moving forward, that moment, because I'd never had that before. I'd had it from my parents, I'd had it from older people, and you get that as a kid, but it's different when you get it from someone the same age as you,
who is also a stranger at the time.
Yes.
It's so weird to think that compliments from strangers would ever mean more than compliments from people who know you. But when you're a creative, you trust the compliments of strangers a lot more than you do your loved ones, because they have no investment in you other than what they saw you do. So they have no reason to spare your feelings to a degree. I mean, obviously, they'll probably be nice people. So therefore, if they've got any real criticisms, that they may not choose to share that with you. But if they're coming up to you specifically and going out of their way to come up to you and say, mate, that was amazing, I really enjoyed that, thank you so much, they didn't have to do that.
No.
and therefore that it must have struck a chord with them or something
Well, it did.
to make them go up and do that.
Yeah, it did for me, like 20, 25 years ago that was now. But I still remember that moment like it was yesterday.
It wasn't quite that long ago. Oh, wait,
Yeah.
no, it was 20 years ago. I was,
Yeah, 20.
oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
man.
Right. I'm going to go crawl back into my grave now. Fuck. I actually I wasn't doing the maths.
You don't contemplate the time, do you?
Yeah, because I just said, I was about 15 and I'm 37. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so for those that think I have an ego, I'm going to blame that surely.
Yeah, I'll take that on. Yeah, sorry everyone. But yeah, no, I'll the fact if you say that sort of helped push you on to other stuff,
Definitely.
mate, I will take that.
Yeah.
I'll take a tiny little slither of the credit. The credit, obviously, at the end of the day, still has to go to you for putting in the work and doing the things that you've done to get to where you are. But I'll take that little bit of like just being like someone who kind of pushed you along the path. Like I'll go for the Gandalf.
When I write the biography,
I'll get a line. I'll get a little line.
You'll get a line.
That's it. I'll go for the Gandalf. All I ever did was give Martin a nudge out the door.
But more about your nudges then.
Yeah.
So you've been part of community theatre. You started to get that recognition from adults who treated you as an equal.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. That is, isn't it?
That's an important thing.
That's an important thing that the adults treat you as equals. Again, because when you're at school, you've been treated like a kid.
Yeah.
Your family can't help but treat you. The adults can't help but treat you like a kid because a lot of them would have seen you grow up.
Well, but also, especially it's like within particularly like a school environment or a family environment, part of their job is to mold you into an adult. So therefore, they're very much part of the process of moving you from being a child or young person to an adult. Like, rightly or wrongly, or like I can pick apart the school system until the cows come home, and maybe that's a conversation for another time. But I mean, that's certainly part of what I feel that they do, and must kind of be in their heads to a greater or lesser degree. So therefore, yeah, they almost, like you say, they can't help but see you as a child because they're part of the process of molding you into something else, molding you into an adult. And connected to what you were saying a minute ago about like when having a compliment from somebody who you didn't know from outside of that environment was important. And you were saying about like the kids at school will like kind of like will see what you do and kind of just like, oh, it's just what he does. I mean, I'd say that in a lot of cases, and particularly in my case, in a lot of times, it can be even worse than that. It could be something like they actively make fun of you for that stuff like that, especially the sort of era that we grew up in. Doing anything that was artistic wasn't as like socially wasn't like as good a social currency amongst like your peers, particularly because I feel like it was never seen as, I hope it's different for kids now. I suspect it isn't, but I hope it is. It's never seen as cool to try at anything.
No.
Or like be interested in something. It's like that aloofness is kind of like a badge of honor of like, I don't care about any of this.
And I think that's something I've seen that a bit with adults as well. Even entering into this doing this podcast, something that's different, something that's still new and different.
Sure.
There is kind of judgment and criticism that I'm receiving a little bit of.
Really?
Yeah, which is quite interesting. But I think that's because people's perception of you starts to get shifted, and no one likes that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, people like to go, this is what this person does. That's where I see them. That's the box that they fit into, and how that fits in with my life. But when you start to diverge from that, it messes with people's heads, and they don't like it.
Do you think it's also a little bit to do with they see you doing something like this, and there's a little bit of like people can wrongly, in my opinion, but like can take from that, oh, I'm not, it's like an indictment of the fact that they're not doing something, and therefore, especially not with everybody, obviously, but I think some people have to feel a need to tear down things that other people are doing to make themselves, at least subconsciously, feel better about the fact that they aren't doing anything.
Hmm. I agree. I
Yeah.
agree and that's why I don't take things like that personally.
Because it says more about them
Because
than it
it
does
says
about
more
you.
about that. Yeah, and yeah, when you get a text message from someone I invited onto this, gives me a text message back about how you shouldn't be doing things that are not quite perfect yet. It's like,
What?
what do you know about building things up? There is a place from which you have to start,
Of course.
and nothing is going to be perfect in the beginning. And nothing is going to be, yeah, and I
It's
just look.
such a baffling take from them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like, no, the guy, he gave me all this long like list of things that I should be doing, and I was like, yes, I agree that that's where I would like to get to, but no one starts there.
Yeah.
Go back to, this is obviously something that I'm very interested in doing the podcast. Um, so I've done some like research, and I've gone back to look at the beginning of Joe Rogan, who is the biggest podcaster in the world.
Controversial one. But
Controversial, but
in terms of what he does,
yeah,
yes. Okay.
but he is number one, and he is the highest paid.
Yes.
Okay, so that's not necessarily something that I'm seeking to get to. However, he's doing that quite successfully. So it's worth looking at
The craft
the
of it.
craft, what he does, and where he's come from.
Leaving
Now,
leaving his politics and his opinions at the door and just seeing the
see
mechanics
the
of what
mechanics
he does
of
and
the
where it came
process.
from. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you go back to, yes, he had a career in entertainment beforehand. He was a presenter. He was a sports commentator before podcasting. So he had an element of experience with being okay on camera and speaking his mind and having his voice heard. So he was experience. He had a grounding before that. However, if you go back to day one of him podcasting, for the first year, it's essentially him and his best friends sitting down with their mobile phones, and at that time you had like cameras that you stuck on the top of a computer
Oh,
of this
bloody
like
hell! Wow.
grainy 480p image where they talk about their next door neighbors and things. And
480p is not very high quality for those
yes,
who
for
don't
those
know.
who but yeah, if you go back to day one of his podcasting, it is pretty awful.
Yeah.
But he started, he persisted, and he grew.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping to do with this.
You've got. I mean, I said it yourself. You've got to start somewhere.
Mhm.
Like, and Dave Grohl, who is a musician who I stand to attention for a lot because he's excellent.
Mhm.
There's some interview he gave which has been shared to death as a meme loads, and you'd think I'd be able to equate it verbatim at this point, but I can't. So I'm just going to get the general gist of it. Is that he said about Nirvana, is that like people like Nirvana get together, and when they get together, they suck. They absolutely suck, and then they keep practicing, and they suck a little less, and they suck a little less. And he said, and what happens is like he was comparing it to like the Simon Cowell machine and like the X Factor and all of that crap. If you like it, that's fine. But it's that what kids who want to be in music need to do is like just buy a shit old guitar, buy a shit drum set, get together in a garage, put stuff together, and yeah, it's probably gonna be crap. It's gonna be terrible, but you keep doing it, and then it's a little bit less crap, and you keep doing it more and more and more. You play to empty bars where there's nobody around and no one gives a fuck about what you're doing, and you keep doing it, and then eventually you're the fucking biggest band in the world. Which is, he said, and that's exactly what happened to Nirvana. Is that we were shit, we were a little bit less shit. We just kept going, and then one day it was like it fell into place.
Mhm.
And I feel like that with my music as well. Like and I'll probably say more about this later, but I've been performing as this artist project solo performer under my own name since about 2016. To 2017 is when it sort of properly kicked off. I'd say it's only really within the last year I've got, since about September of last year, actually, so almost a complete year. I've started to really nail down what I'm doing and what I'm about. But yeah, you have to start at the beginning. Nobody can
You have to
start.
suck first.
Yeah.
You know?
And you have
Yeah.
to do it with like the shit equipment that you can afford at the time.
Mhm.
You're not going to have like the best lighting setup. And this, by the way, is fucking excellent. This, I walked in and looked, I was like, this looks super goddamn professional. I've never done anything like this before. It's amazing.
Yeah. I think I like to think I like to fail forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how everybody's got to do it. That's
Yeah.
the,
You can fail backwards. Fail backwards to me is failing and going, I'll stop.
yeah.
Yeah.
You only
I'd like
fail
to.
when you give up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything else is about learning
Yeah.
and developing and growing. Yeah.
There's that quote by Michael Jordan as well, where he said like, it's a thing like I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot like 57 times. I'm getting the numbers wrong. 57 times and missed. I have like missed X number of shots in my career. I have like made this many bad plays or whatever. It's like this whole list of all the ways that he can remember in vivid detail how he messed up and he didn't get what he wanted. He said, and that is why I succeed, because it's like that's him saying, I'm not perfect, but I will always, if I fail, when I get something wrong, I will look at it, I will learn from it, and I will see what I can take forward and what does it teach. And that's the difference, I think, between failing forward and failing backwards. Failing backwards would be is to try, fail, and then go, I'm shit, I give up. Which I definitely did a lot of when I was younger. I didn't like playing guitar. I first started tying this back into the general story of where my creativity and stuff came from. I attempted to learn guitar for the first time when I was about 13. And it was with like an after school program that was run by the school. You know, back when schools had budgets for that sort of shit. It was during the Labour years. It was a nicer time for most of us, not everybody, obviously. Disclaimer. But I'm so keen not to offend anyone.
No, they can take what I guess any listener or watcher can take any judgment or information that we share as they want to.
Yeah, opinions are my own. If you disagree, that's absolutely fine.
And that's the beauty of, isn't that the beauty of free speech? Isn't that what we're supposed to be about?
Yeah,
that we have ideas and opinions and that we're challenged on those.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, just don't be an asshole.
Yeah,
surely.
exactly. So not everything you say is going to be right or wrong,
and be willing to be willing to be willing to accept that you might be wrong. That's, I think it's you always have to be ready, and it's hard. It's really hard. You have to be ready to to be open enough to understand, to receive wisdom from somebody else, receive influence from somebody else, and realize, oh, that thing that I've been going around in my head for ages is very definitely wrong. There are so many occasions where I have said things like, I've had these opinions in my head for a while, and then you get to you finally say one of them out loud to someone. You go, fuck, that's definitely wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
That's definitely wrong, and I've put that out into the world.
Well, you may listen back to this in a few weeks' time and be like,
"What the fuck was on about?
What was I going on about? Do I agree with that anymore? No." But at that moment in time, that was the thought that I had.
Yeah, but yeah, when I was trying to learn guitar when I was 13.
So did you like? I think that's the beauty of creativity, is that you're not necessarily an actor or a musician, but you can have these paths of creativity and they can overlap and they can combine.
Yeah.
So was you always an actor and a musician at the same time, or did?
I was definitely an actor for the longest time. In fact, until I went to that Stagecoach style group, I, for the first, say, God, like 6 months to a year, because it was like an hour of singing, an hour of drama, an hour of dance. The dance I was always useless at, and never got any better, actually. The drama is what got me there. The singing was like, I for the first 6 months, I was like, can't do this. I'm not a singer. Can't do it. I'm not really good. But the guy who ran it, a South African guy named Michael Rowitz. I'm plugging him if he's still out there. I haven't seen him in over 20 years, but hope he's still well, Michael. He just pushed me, and then one day, like clear notes came out, and it was like, I can't remember the song, but he was like playing the piano, and he's getting me to solo something, and he was like, no, you can do it, like, he just kept playing, and then this note rang clear, and I just remember him going, "I love you." And I'm like, that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
It's in there. It's like just certain. It's weird. Sometimes I can't remember what the hell I did yesterday, but things like that. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that. Like it was yesterday. But yeah, so yeah, I was definitely an actor primarily, like at least definitely up until that point, and then I'd say it started shifting when I was about 14. But the guitar thing, like I tried to learn guitar. I'll tell you how that started. It was because I watched when I was about 12. I watched the film Back to the Future, and the scene when Marty plays Johnny Be Good was like fucking life changing for me. I was like, I want to do that.
Yes. Yes.
That looks amazing. Like, not even necessarily when he's going nuts at the end, but just like when he was doing like. My favorite bit is when he's doing like lead guitar work, but there's like it's like tasteful lead rock guitar that's more sort of not quite in keeping with that era, but a little bit further. When he's like does a like that. I just remember that those note bending bits just being like, that's whoa, you can make guitars do that? That's so fucking cool, man. And yeah, I wanted to do that. So when I got to these lessons in secondary school, and I had a cheap, terrible kids Spanish acoustic guitar, like with the nylon strings and everything, and it was just like trying to learn what the notes were, what the scales were. I had no patience for that. Like, when do I get to fucking rock out to Johnny Be Good? So I had that on the practical end, and then they also made you do theory for that as well. And now I find music theory fascinating. Love learning music theory now. But at the time, I was like, this is more school. Why the fuck am I doing more school when it's after school? And yeah, so it didn't last and it didn't take.
What is it you love about it now?
It's just it just helps. It broadens your understanding, and also it gives you a language to discuss music. And I'm not saying that people have to learn theory. I know loads of amazing musicians who've never had a lesson. They've never had. They don't know one bit of theory. They could just about tell you what the notes on the guitar are and the notes being played are. But like, yeah, they're phenomenal musicians. But I just think it's helpful if you do know that, and it's just fascinating to kind of like sometimes sort of see the mechanics behind the magic. And to me, it doesn't. In a lot of fields, I feel like it would sort of take away some of the magic, but like the understanding, you almost feel like you're part of a secret club that way as well. It's like being part of the magic circle somehow.
You know the tricks.
Yeah, you know the mechanics of what's happening. I remember finding out about something called an appoggiatura. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. It is a note that does not belong in the scale, in the key of the thing that's happening, but it kind of slides out of the scale and then comes back in. And it scientifically creates an emotional reaction in people who hear it. A really good example is the song Rainbow Connection from the Muppets.
Mm-hmm.
In the line, someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, that neck in connection, it's not in the key of the song, but it slides out and then slides back in, and it creates like an emotional response in people. Apparently, supposedly, Adele's songs are full of them. I've been told. I don't listen to that much Adele, but I accept that someone's told me that, and that's true. But yeah, that's like, there you go. That's just one little bit of information, folks. They just like, you can take that away with you and just go, oh, that's cool. That's an interesting thing to know. And I guess now as well, the other difference is, and what makes that sort of stuff stick, is I'm just more curious now than I was as a 13-year-old. It was like, oh God, give me the path of least resistance.
Yes,
please. I wanted to pick up a guitar and just be good at it. I didn't want to work at it. I didn't have the patience to that, which again, one of those things I'm now realizing is part of being ADHD.
And there's something that came for me in later life that was about learning. I didn't enjoy the learning process at school one bit.
Because school is not designed to teach you to love learning. Apologies to the teachers who are really trying their best to do that, and some of you are doing an amazing job of it, but the system as a whole doesn't work in yours or their best interests, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I would say that's a very valid point. you wait till your children go to secondary school.
I'm home educating my child.
Yeah.
Oh, my,
Oh, you've decided that already, have you?
yeah, because
Yeah.
she's officially she's school age
Oh,
now.
so you are actually home educating.
As of this week, we just started.
Right. So have you tried conventional schooling at all?
Nope. We
No.
we looked into it more and more. The more and more we looked into it, the
Mhm.
more we realised that this is a way in which we think Amelia will thrive. And we're certainly not doing it because we think it's going to be easy. The easiest thing for me and my wife to do would be, off you go, school, 5 days a week. I know where
Yeah.
you are. You're going to be there. We can do this. We can continue with our normal working lives, because we've had to radically restructure how we work.
Mhm.
I've had to go down to part-time. My wife is currently trying to start her own business. So we've had to kind of structure our weeks so that I'm working for some of it, she's working for other bits of it. She's going to a forest school 1 day a week.
Can I ask what forest school is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like there's like a really nice sort of Swiss Gardens place near where we live, a place called Shuttleworth, and they have a forest school that runs there. So they go there, they learn about nature, they do activities there, but it's all like kids of different ages from like 5 all the way to I think up to 14 in this particular case. Yeah, the kids are all in there learning together, like from each other. There's no sort of like regimented separation into like their year groups. They do whatever they feel, and that's kind of the point of home education for us. Is the model that we look at, which is why we say home education and not homeschooling, because a lot of people go, "Oh, you homeschool." It's like, I'm very forgiving of people who use that term, but it is a very different thing. Because when people think of homeschooling, they think of what they had to do for their kids during the pandemic,
Mhm.
which, yeah, we wouldn't want to do that. We want that. What they're thinking of is we do school at home, which is absolutely not what we do. Because if we're going to do that, just send them to school. They're trained on how to do that. But it's child led. It's very much like in line with, we follow their interests, we follow what they want to do, obviously within reason. But it's like the thing that I use as like an example of how I don't think school can work particularly well is that, say, my daughter, who I've already said is all about colouring and drawing and crayons and felt tip pens and everything, and they're doing a drawing activity, and she's really into it, and she's really getting into like some really good detail and whatever. And then it's like, okay, children, it's time to stop now. Now we're going to go outside and do PE. And then my child would be like, again, if everyone had the language to express themselves properly, it'd be like, I don't really want to do that at the moment. I might do later. If we can do that later, that'd be great. But I'm really into what I'm doing here right now, and I feel like I'm getting something really good out of it. And then the response to that would be, but it's not time to do that now. We've had the time to do that, and now it is the allotted time to go and do the PE outside. But I don't want to do that, and that's how you can kind of potentially hit like roadblocks with kids, like not like being uncooperative or
Mhm.
whatever. It's because it's like,
Conforming to the
yeah, school is what school is really good at is teaching kids to obey, to be
Yes.
obedient, to be compliant, and it is not good at. I'm basically going to paraquote Rick and Morty here. It's not good at creating free thinkers. It's like it's good at. Somebody said to me recently that something he got from a TED talk was that they're very good. It's what school teaches us to memorize things in an age where memorizing things is almost completely useless.
Mhm.
Like, I'd say when we were at school, it was a little bit different because we didn't have, mobile phones. It's like smartphones in our
Yeah,
pockets.
yeah.
Like, if we want to know something,
We've got access to that immediately,
we
haven't
can
we?
look it up.
Yeah,
If we don't know how to do something,
Mhm.
I can go on YouTube and watch a video on how to do it. And I'm not saying that like knowing basic skills isn't important, because one thing I've said is I definitely want to make sure that our daughter knows what they used to call wrongly the 3 R's, even though only one word starts with an R: reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Mm.
They don't start with R's. Um, but yeah, as long as she can read, which she's learning, as long as she can write, which she can, and she has been able to write her own name legibly since she was about 3. Um, and she can do maths again, which she's really good at now. She's good for a 5-year-old, at least, put it that way.
Mhm.
Um, then yeah, the rest of it is kind of like, let's just follow what she wants and learn the things that she wants to learn.
One of the benefits of school potentially is being part of a community,
Yep, absolutely.
interacting with other kids and learning how to deal with other people. How not your daughter not having that, she's not going to be around lots of other people. How could you give her that community engagement?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, Martin. No, it's the one thing that home educators get asked a lot, the most. I think it's what they say. Oh, well, what do you do about socialization? And let me ask you, um, why is it that we think that they only learn to do that from being at school? Why is it we think that they can only do that in a peer group that consists of people who were born between September and August of the academic year in which they are born? Um, Kids learn social skills everywhere. They
Mm.
learn social skills from, like, Alex and Chloe would have learned social skills talking to you. They might not have learned the best ones talking to you, but but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
when as long as you haven't put them in a box where they don't talk to people, they're learning all the time. And also within the home, to add to that further, is like home education. There's so many groups out there. Like, for example, Amelia's going to be going to the forest school, so she's going to be learning and talking to kids that way. We still set up like play dates with friends. We just had one with one of her old nursery friends yesterday, who is starting school, traditional school, next week. So yeah, we had a day where, 'cause obviously she was still at home, so we could do that together. Um, yeah, so there are plenty of ways out there in which the kids will still learn, and
And
they're learning all the time. Kids, the one job that kids do, the one job that they have, and the one job that they do very, very well is learn. As
mm,
long as you don't, as long as you take away the barriers to them being able to learn. And I'd say that you suggested it earlier on, actually, that school did not inculcate a love of learning for you, and it didn't for me either. And I feel like, if there was some way I could have been home educated or something like that, I feel like I would have, because there are a lot of barriers that I had as a child with undiagnosed ADHD. That some kids will go through the school system and they'll really thrive in it. It suits them very, very well. But the problem is that we treat kids with a one size fits all approach, and and we discussed it earlier on. How different are our kids from
mm,
each other? Uh, it's kind of madness to think that. I mean, I know they try to flex their approaches a lot at school because we know a lot of teachers between us, but um, it's mad to think that, like, we just have this blanket approach, and having a room full of having your kid in a room with 29, say, other kids, 30 other kids, and expecting them all to grasp the material at the same rate. Some kids are just going to get it really quickly, and then those kids are going to be bored because they want to move on to something else and they feel like they understand it. Some kids are going to get it at the right rate, and they'll feel uh, not overstretched, but they'll feel challenged enough. Some kids, like, there are a lot of things. I was really slow at, like, writing things down as a kid, and I remember a lot of school. This came up for me recently when I was discussing it with somebody, and it was like, I remember saying, "Oh, there's some trauma that I didn't realize that I had." It's like I was made to feel stupid and slow because I just I wrote things down more slowly, which meant I I missed things, or I get halfway through an activity and I wouldn't finish it
mm,
because the teacher would then decide that's long enough for them to do that bit. Now we're going to move on to the next bit. But I hadn't fully worked through the bit before, so therefore I I needed that. How am I going to understand when they're moving on to the next bit, which should be building on the bit that they just came before? How am I going to fully grasp that if I haven't completed the bit before it? And I would run into so many issues like that. And yeah, that has such an. I didn't realize until I had this conversation with someone 2, 3 weeks ago how much that affected me. Like, in
mm.
talking about it, it was just so, like, I had this well of emotions come up, and I felt so, like, angry and aggrieved for my past self that I was not given that that care and understanding, because of course teachers can't like stop the whole thing because one or two people aren't getting it, or even if it's just one person who isn't getting it, because the way that it's all designed and set up is very much kind of like, we've got to keep it moving, we've got to keep it going. I mean, none of this is to say that teachers do a bad job. Teachers do an amazing job under fucking awful circumstances a lot of the time. It's just it's the system as a whole is not designed with the modern world in mind, and it's not designed with modern learning. What we know about how people learn best. My wife is a learning and design consultant. Ensemble Learning, go check her out for all your learning needs. But yeah,
so repeat that. That was
Ensemble Learning Limited.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Because she's worked in the past for lots of companies. Like she designs training for companies. Like whenever you go to a new company and they have what she will agree as well is often very boring kind of training bits that you need to get through. She designs that sort of thing, but she's very aware of like, I don't want them to be boring. I want them to be engaging. I want them to like really get down into how people learn and give like worked examples and let people use what they're picking up from the course to use it whilst learning it so that it actually sticks in. And she's very good at it. But now she's like setting up. She's been setting up to go solo with it. She got made redundant from a company who I will not name earlier this year, and she decided, I don't think I want another job. I think I want to do this for myself and have some flexibility. It's kind of that whole thing we talked about reprioritizing after COVID earlier. Yeah, it's like it gives her time to be with her parents who aren't very well. Gives her time at home to be with Amelia. But yeah, so she knows a lot about how people learn, particularly how adults learn. But like she has a lot of insider knowledge in how the brain gets information, and she looks at school and goes, "That's not how people learn. That doesn't." They're very good at teaching to a test. And like memorizing just enough to get through that particular test on that particular subject. And you'll know this, like from your own education experience. I suspect. You'd get through the test, and then it's almost like you never revisit that stuff ever again. How much of it's still in here?
Yeah, very little.
Very little, right?
Yeah.
And I'm the same.
Everything you're saying really resonates with me. I got diagnosed as dyslexic after school.
Yeah.
Throughout school, there was never any recognition for that at all.
I remember it being a challenge for you on read-throughs.
Yes, it was a challenge throughout my life that I'm still adapting to this day, being dyslexic. And I do find new ways to cope and deal with that. I'm learning about that all the time. I'm learning that it's also an attention issue, that maybe there's an attention, I wouldn't like to start self-diagnosing myself as ADHD as well, but maybe that's got something to do with it. But yeah, everything you're saying about your experience of school is completely the same for me. That the learning that I did in the education system didn't serve me well. In fact, it did the exact opposite of what it was supposed to do. It put me in a position of feeling very unconfident with the world that I was moving into. I was just blessed with the things that I did outside of school. My worry that I said to you about community for your daughter, where is she going to experience that? You've kind of said about how you learned about community through community theatre with these adults that treated you like an equal.
Yeah.
So those are the places that are important to get your child along to help develop and grow.
He said it all.
Yeah.
I couldn't have put it better myself. Yeah. Absolutely. It's
finding like-minded community. So even if that isn't within theatre, if it's something else,
find your people, find your congregation, find your team, and that's where you find all of that stuff.
And I guess it's finding your people, finding your tribe,
the tribe. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it's finding that group that have similar interests that can help drive you forward.
And
Yeah,
similar values as well.
that's right. And I think the problem with today's society is that we're trying to be forced to be one tribe as a
Yes.
full collective, and it's clearly not working, is it?
Yeah, what you really need, because obviously me being quite socialist in outlook, I quite like. I'm very much of that idea of like we're all in this together, and we should be.
Yeah,
But
which
it's like,
do you know what? If anything pisses me off more, if anything gets to me more, is when I see a politician come on the news and go, "We're all in this together,"
oh god, yeah, oh yeah, because yeah,
and I want to
you go, no,
I.
we're fucking
I
not.
dread the day I meet someone and they say that to me to my face, because there was they put a poster on the back of the playhouse that said, this was prior to the pandemic, that had, "We're all in this together. We're all in the same boat." And it was this big, massive poster that was put up, some political campaign. And I just saw that and was like, we are not all in the same boat.
You've reminded me of something connected to that I've seen a while ago. I'm probably going to slightly misquote it. There was a meme that went around saying, "We're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same sea. It's just that some of us have yachts and some
Well,
of us have dinghies."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's it. It's like, yeah, the circumstances surrounding us are all the same, but some of us are more well equipped to deal with it because of material circumstances, some of which we have no control
Yeah.
over.
And I would say that it's not necessarily a problem that some of us have yachts and some of us have dinghies. It's recognizing
Yes.
that, which
Yes.
helps to solve the issues for the ones that are in the dinghies.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have to like. I mean, I am a little bit of a eat the rich kind of person, but like we don't necessarily like. I'm also a Republican, small R Republican, in the sense that like I don't particularly think that we should have a royal family, but also I'm like I don't want to take all of their money away and anything. I just don't feel like we should have a royal family. I'm not even talking about like strip them of all their assets. It's like no, take the ones that are like take state property back, but like the things that they've earned through their own like business interests and stuff, like no, that's fine. Just leave it with them. But where the hell was I going with that?
Well, I think
About being all in it together and stuff. Yeah. What is from what you were saying about like not wanting everyone? We shouldn't be trying to make everyone like one collective. It should be kind of like a collective of collectives in a sense, like in a sense of like we've got all of these tribes, but we all cooperate and we all talk to each other still and learn from one another and have like agreed differences on things that we can agree to have differences on. I mean, like there's certain things about like, don't kill people. I think we should all agree that that's like that generally speaking, that's not something we should all have differences on. But like, just in terms of like, just we are more into this thing over here, and we build our tribe around this, around the theatre, around music. You guys build your cathedrals, your thing around football. That's okay, cool. That's fun. That's great for you. You can do that if you want. We can do this thing, and we can kind of come into each other's churches a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I'm getting into wanky territory here, but yeah.
That's going to be that's going to be the title of this episode. Dan Thomas, wanky.
Oh god, where were we before that? We've gone on so many tangents.
It's all part of the story, isn't it? It's all part of the journey that you've been through, Dan. And what I'm trying to get to is that you've come to this place where you have a music career alongside your job, and whilst you're not world famous, you are. I would see you as a successful musician.
Well, thank you very much.
You are living a musician's life. Is that not some form of success?
Do you know what? Sometimes you need people to point that out to you, I think, and it's very easy doing what I do, and also I imagine in your professional acting career as well, to just kind of think about where you've not got to yet, what you haven't achieved yet, and sometimes you need somebody to stop you and just turn you around for a second and go, look where you started and look at where you are now. and just like don't stop moving of where you're going, but just take a second. It's like when they say take a second to smell the roses. It's like take a second to think about what you have accomplished. And on the times that I've done that, I kind of go, actually, yeah, I've come quite a way. Thanks for that. Thanks for making me stop. That was pretty cool. Like, as I was saying, I didn't really take to playing guitar. And one of the reasons I ended up going solo was because I didn't. I got frustrated with bands. More on that later. But it meant that I had to learn to accompany myself on guitar, and that was a real challenge for me because I always used to say, "Oh, I have a musical brain. I don't have musical fingers," which I now know was an absolute bullshit excuse that I was giving myself. And then I made myself do it, and now it's to the point where like I'm not a whiz on the guitar. I know some real like phenomenal musicians, but I know enough to get up on a stage and play it so that I've got something to play to sing to, and I know enough to be able to write songs. And that's like, I mean, I know more chords than your standard Green Day song, and Green Day have made a pretty great career out of like that limited number of chords. I don't want to disparage Green Day, but
No.
I'm just making the point that like that's not necessarily only having like a few chords under your belt is not a barrier to being able to write songs. Like country music is very big for having the expression of the country music is all about 3 chords and the truth. And yeah, a lot of that it's all comes down to like a simple song with like a clear theme and message and a good catchy hook. That's for me. That's my thing that a song has to have. That's all you need when you've got if you can strip it down to its core elements, which is usually this and this, and it's a great song. And yeah, that's.
I'm surprised you wasn't more wanky than that. I'm surprised you didn't say this, and this.
Oh my God, no!
Like,
oh yeah, I think that would have just been too much.
that would have been too far.
Oh God, can you imagine it? I'd have done that. Nick would have seen it and just gone like, and just howled and been like, "What the fuck was that?"
But no, let's be serious. Let's be real though. That you write a lot of your own music.
I do.
And you write the music that you write. When I sit back and listen to it, I hear it comes from a place of experience and feelings and emotion.
Yeah, I don't know how to write any other way. I've tried other ways, and it's like it doesn't work for me. It's funny. I was at a gig last night watching 2 phenomenal musicians, Jess Guys and Hannah Rose Platt. They were kind of doing like an in the round thing where it wasn't one played and then the other played. They were both like up on stage at the same time. One would play a couple of songs, then they'd play one together, and then another one would play a song or 2, and then they'd play together again. And Hannah Rose Platt is the musician I was less familiar with, and her recent album is kind of all about ghost stories. And there's like a song called Dead Man on the G Train, which is like it's like a story that's set in the 1930s that's about a woman who hires an assassin to kill her philandering husband, and then she also kills the assassin so that she can do away with her husband without a messy divorce, that she can't prove adultery in court, but she could easily go, I shot a man in self-defense. And she did that, and then Jess got up to do some of her songs, and she says like, yeah, Hannah writes all these great songs with like stories. I write about my feelings. And I was like, I was very much more familiar with Jess Guys' work going in there, and I was like, I'm good with that, Jess. That's the school I come from, and I find it's a relatable way of writing, and I think it's a tough thing sometimes. It's like, I think it's a challenge for a songwriter, or at least one that they can set themselves, and in my opinion, in my line of work, should set themselves, is to take emotions and experiences that are very personal and singular to them, and find a way of making that relatable to people in general. And I'd like to think I'm fairly good at that, because I've had people talk to me about my songs and what they meant afterwards. I have one song. There is a recorded version out there. There's another one. I'm going to be getting it and a bunch of the others redone. soon. I have a song because before my daughter was born, Nicola and I suffered a miscarriage at the end of 2017, and it was the worst week of mine and Nick's lives to that point, and I'm thankful to say since. And I dealt with that the only way that I know how, which is I wrote a song about it. And there was a little while where I stopped playing it because I often played in rowdy pubs where you kind of, if you're playing the pub circuit in the UK, you kind of have to be okay with people ignoring you for the most part, because in a pub you're not necessarily the reason that people are there. Some people have just come to their local boozer for a drink, and the fact that there is a musician there is incidental. It's different when you're at a music venue. It's like people have come there specifically to come see live music. So I think you can expect different levels of etiquette between the two types of venue. But yeah, a lot of the gigs I was playing were in rowdy pubs, so I stopped playing it because I'm fine with a lot of my music being ignored. I'm not okay with that song being not listened to, because it's like, I'm singing a song about the worst thing that ever happened to me and my wife. I would just ask you politely just to pay attention for 3 minutes. Just, you don't even have to properly listen, but just don't fucking talk over it, please. So I stopped playing it for a while, and then I went on tour with my current tour manager. We did some shows in the EU. The first show I was playing alongside another artist, and I had a shorter set, and it wasn't in that set. The second night, I was playing all on my own, so I did 2 rounds of like 45 minutes, and so therefore a longer set. That one was in there. I came off, and he said, "Why the fuck is that not in every single one of your sets?" And I was like, and I explained because of the pubs thing, and he was like, "Mate, no, that's beautiful. That should be in every set you play." I disagree with him to an extent. There's still a couple of sets where I go, that one I don't feel that one will work here. And I feel like, generally speaking, I'm the best judge of what's going to work in any given audience. But I play it a lot now, and it's the one that people will come up and talk to me about. And one of the memory that really stuck with me is at the end of that EU tour, we ended in a place called Stolberg in Germany. And the guy, Rob, who was running the show, who'd booked us, he came up to me after one of my sets. That was like a 3-set night, like 3 rounds of half an hour. And the set that had contained that song, he came up to me and he told me that his 70-year-old dad was in the audience as well. And he said, "That song helped me have a conversation with my dad about my sister who died before I was born." And that was like, it was one of those things of like, that hit like a sledgehammer. And I was like, the only thing I could think to say was something along the lines of like, "I'm so glad I could facilitate that discussion with you. I'm so glad you guys got to have that conversation." And I'm struggling to remember the point I was going to get.
How does that feel that you've gone through this hard times, putting it lightly, and that you've created something from that now helps others?
It's amazing. It's like, I don't actually have the words to describe how brilliant that is, which really sucks, considering that this is very much an audio medium, and me not having the words to describe it is challenging for listeners at home. But yeah, it's to be able to take that sort of pain. Now remember where the point I was getting to be able to take that sort of pain and communicate it to others in a way that is cathartic for me and cathartic for them as well, in that some people will come up to me and talk to me about their own losses, and therefore I will then connect with them and talk to them about, as much as they're comfortable to, obviously, about their own experiences, and we can just sort of like comfort each other in talking about it. It's like, that's part of the magic of life and the healing that can come out of music and art in general, because it's like, when you hear a great song, when you see a great play and a great performance, it's like, and you and it sort of stirs something within you that sometimes you're not even necessarily aware of was in there, or something you'd not thought about in a very long time. It's like that's like people, and often strangers, sort of reaching out across to each other and just connecting for a moment. And it's like that's going all the way back to the start of what we were saying earlier on. Is like, isn't that the sort of stuff that makes life feel worth it?
Yeah.
And to have that sense of connection with your fellow human beings, particularly when they're like when they're strangers, and it's like, and you just sort of go, wow, this is someone who I didn't know, and we've touched each other's lives for that brief second. And like I say, with performances, it's like you got that thing of like, it's a moment in time, and then it's gone, but it's like then it's a memory that then lives with you forever.
At this point, I've got one question for you.
Okay.
Can I hear some of this?
Absolutely, you can.
Can I? We've got this beautiful guitar here sitting in the middle of us, and we didn't plan that this would be the song that you perform, but I don't think there's anything more important right now other than to hear even maybe just a verse. It's up to you how much you want to play.
Yeah, I'm absolutely happy to.
But
play
I think at this point, yeah, I'd love to hear it, Dan.
Great. Okay, cool. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Thomas. This is a song I wrote called "The Hole You Leave Behind." A song I wrote about when my wife and I went through a miscarriage a few years ago. When you came to my life, I could scarcely believe it. The luckiest man on earth. All of a sudden, my senses were focused, and now I knew my worth. You gave me a purpose that I'd never known, a feeling I'd never felt before. I promised to always do my best and love you forevermore. But now you're gone and my heart's torn in two, and words are too hard to find. Darling, there's just no getting over you and the hole you leave behind. Day after day, we'd look to the future, staring, eyes held wide. So many plans, I could barely contain it. I could not hold it inside. I'd scream from the rooftops, I'd tell every stranger I'd found a love so true. But all too soon, I'd learn of the heartache that comes from losing you. 'Cause now you're gone and my heart's torn in two, and words are too hard to find. Darling, there's just no getting over you and the hole you leave behind. Your mommy came home with fear in her eyes, and something felt so wrong. The doctor, she told us your heart wasn't beating and that our child was gone. So now you are sleeping, Daddy will sing you one last lullaby. Mommy, she loves you, and Daddy does too, but now we must say goodbye. Now you're gone and my heart's torn in two, and words are too hard to find. Darling, there's just no getting over you and the hole you leave behind. No matter where I go and what may come, you'll always be on my mind. Held in our hearts, our sweet sweet little angel. In the hole you leave behind.
Oh, man, that's emotional.
You all right?
That honestly. Oh man.
I get this reaction quite a lot.
Man, like knowing the story as well.
Yeah.
Like knowing what that means to you and like.
And that's very much what I do on stage now as well. Is I'm a storyteller. I tell the stories behind the songs before I play them. Because again, that was my tour manager's note, and it's like people respond to them.
Yeah, it hits differently.
Yeah, it really does, and that's been a really good note for me to going forward. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm a storytelling musician. That's my thing. Oh. Yeah. It's a good job I couldn't see you cry, because that might have set me off. Because that's usually what happens. Is like,
I'm emotional anyway. Like,
oh yeah.
I'm in touch with my emotions. There's nothing to fear there. But yeah. Dan, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, man. That was,
I truly appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
So how does that feel when you perform that song then?
It's like I get to remember. I get to. It's like I get to just remind myself that happened, and that she, because I like to think of her as a she, our unborn child, that she was here, and she came in. She was in our lives for a very short period of time, and we had all those hopes and dreams, and it's a way of not forgetting that happened, and that she was here and was a part of our lives. And yeah, and like I say, performing that one, it's again, it's the impact that it has on other people. And what I really want to do is get people to talk about that sort of thing more as well, because
it's hugely common, isn't it? And
so common.
It's it's one of those unspoken things that people are so hurt and by something that happens often naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we should be talking about it more, these common things, so we can have these shared experiences and help each other and raise each other up and
yeah, absolutely,
lift each other up, so that we can help find a place of existence.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't realize exactly how common it was until we went through it, and you sort of look into the numbers, and it's something like as many as like 1 in 4 women will have one throughout their lifetime, and some of them will have it without even knowing it, because it will happen within the first 4 months, and therefore like it's just a lot of them would put it down to like a heavier than normal flow or whatever. But yeah, it's just, I remember like thinking about, because there's that rule, that unspoken rule. I say it's unspoken. It's like this unwritten rule of you don't, when you and your partner are expecting a child, you don't tell people for the first 12 weeks. Once you've had the 12-week scan, that's when you're allowed to start telling people. And the reason most people do that is that the chance of a miscarriage drops dramatically after 12 weeks. And so it's kind of like people. So the received wisdom of it is that, oh, we don't want to like go around telling everyone that this is happening, and then have people ask you about it, and then you have to tell that story every single time, and that's painful. But then I remember seeing someone asked, in that's like the community of people who've lost babies, say, who does this rule serve? Who does this serve? It's to protect people from. It's almost like it's to protect the people who are asking about your child who's unfortunately not come to term. It's to protect them from embarrassment, almost, of an awkward conversation. And it's like that's surely got to be secondary to the emotional health of the people who are going through such like a terrible terrible time and a terrible loss. Because like I don't care what what I don't care what how most people think about it. It's like, to me, it's like the moment you find out that you're expecting and it's a pregnancy that you want, disclaimer, obviously, uh, in your mind, you become parents. That's to me and my wife, who were actively wanting to have children at that point. Um, once you've sort of once you've done that, and you find it out, and you accept that this is the thing that's going to happen. In I was to me, I was dad. Dad, I'd become dad. My wife became mum, and you have all of these. The sort of things I was saying to Amelia the other day is like, you think about, what's my child going to look like? Who are they going to be? What's their smile going to look like? I wonder if they'll have my eye color. I wonder if they'll have her smile. And after, like, I think we were like 7 weeks in when the miscarriage happened. And after that, like, that reality is like, it's like it's the life you thought you were about to have, and the hopes and dreams that you had is like, that's snuffed out, like, so brutally and so casually. And it's often made worse by, I can only really speak to my experience of it, is when we were going through it. um I picked, what happened is that Nick was coming home from work when she was working in London, and she called me to say, I think, in floods of tears, I think something's wrong. um and I picked her up from the train station, and she said she'd been spotting and bleeding, and we're like, right, race to the hospital, straight to the hospital, and we spent our entire evening and into the early hours of the next morning at the hospital, waiting. Um, and when we were eventually told that um, it looks like you're at the beginning of a miscarriage, um, the doctors were fucking shit. I have to say, the nurses were incredible, so warm, so gentle, really looked after us, and the doctors were crap. And I'll tell you for why. It's not even necessarily their fault that they were crap. Is that they were very clinical about it, and it was very matter of fact, of like, oh, at this stage it's very common, and it's like, I don't think this was the intention, but there was almost of like, well, you kind of almost should have expected that this was going to happen. And it's like, bullshit, man. I know that from a medical perspective that is true. All of that's true. I can't argue. I can't deny any of that. But you're dealing with two people who, like I said, in their heads, when that little pregnancy test came back positive and we had it confirmed, we were parents, and we're now grieving for a child that never came to be. And yet, I mean, some people go through it a lot further down the line, and then they end up still having to, like, give birth to their child who's not made it. And yeah, it's just, I just wanted to, like, it was so dreadfully upsetting to think how casually, maybe casually is not the right word, just how clinical the doctors were about it, and how matter of fact. And it's like, just, there's a human element to this, and I understand where you guys are with it, but you got to understand that there's two heartbroken people here, absolutely crushed, crestfallen people. And yeah, and it's like, we need to we all need to talk about it a lot more. And I think the conversation is, since then, people do talk about it a lot more. I don't know if it's just because I've been through it, and therefore I end up connecting with those sorts of communities a little bit more, and that information finds its way to me. But yeah, it's so important to talk about child loss, whether it's uh, a young child who's died, whether it's a child who is stillborn, or whether it's just a miscarriage from relatively early on. It's like, it's all grief, and it's all real, and it all needs the love and support of the communities around you to help you get through it. And the fact that there's a culture of silence around it when you say if you're 12 weeks in or less, where it's like you don't get to talk about that with anyone other than your spouse. It's like to have to be forced to keep that pain private. I understand if there are some people who want to keep that pain private, that's absolutely their prerogative to do that. But to feel like you can't share that with people, you and I both know that that talking in community is essential to healing
Mhm.
for people. And to deny these people that when it's something so intimate and personal, particularly for women as well. I know that Nicola felt like she'd done something wrong, that her body was failing to give life to this child. And there's all sorts of reasons why miscarriages happen, and it's usually to protect the mother.
Yeah.
It's like that's the body recognizes that it's a pregnancy that if it's carried to term will have long term would have risks to either the infant, the mother, or both. And so therefore the body just goes, we need to, it's not taken, abort. Probably should have used a different word there. Apologies, trigger warning for people.
So Dan, you've found a place of comfort. Again, I might be using the wrong word, comfort. But you've found a place of healing
Yeah.
within your creativity, within your music, and hopefully that healing can be spread to others.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'd like to think so.
I
Yeah.
would say there is some kind of almost mystical, magical thing behind this. You've 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 created this song to help yourself. As you share it with others, other people sit back and they take something from it that then helps them within their life and their day. And I
The,
think there's something really beautiful within that, isn't there?
the magic of art, man.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
So, what advice would you give to someone that is going through something really, really difficult? What advice would you give to them in ways of picking up an art form, whether that's music or drama, or what advice would you give to them in moving forward with that to help heal?
Wow. Okay. For starters, I am in no way qualified to give proper advice, but so take whatever I say with a pinch of salt. But it's find something to channel your feelings, and it could be anything. You could bake. It doesn't have to. You don't have to pick up your guitar. You could do you could bake something in a way that, and you say to yourself, this is my way of honoring that memory at that time, that feeling. You could write a poem. You could plant a garden. It's just find the thing that you feel that you can do uh to channel it, and don't worry about it being something that's perfect to memorialize this thing. It's like we were saying earlier about you got to start somewhere, and you can. It's like this thing may not be perfect, but it's mine, and it's what I did. This is the mark I left to to honor that, and yeah, just find a way of channeling it and leaving something behind. And if it's something, it can either be something that you can do just once and it's there, or it's something you can do many times and do many different versions of this thing. The thing that Nicola did is that Nick crochets. So she made a tiny little pink teddy. And we always refer to our unborn daughter as Baby T, but Thomas obviously. And she stitched a little T in its foot, and that that teddy is now it's part of my daughter's teddy collection, and we sort of kind of what's the word? It's not joking, not half jokingly, but kind of lovingly and not entirely seriously, sort of say to her that, oh, this is your big sister, and this is your big sister who's here looking out for you. Neither Nick or I are spiritual people, but that's just our way of like channeling it into that. But yeah, so that was Nick's way of using her creativity to memorialize something as well. So then, so that's something that you can do multiple times if you feel like it's something that you make, and I want to make another thing to help me channel it as well. Or it can be something like a song, like I did, where it's like it's a piece of art that continues to exist, and then it's a piece of art that you can also replicate by playing it to people. So yeah, I guess that was a long answer to the question, but yeah, it's find
very valuable insight there, Dan.
Find your way to channel it, and also and just make sure you seek comfort and healing from whatever community that you're part of, whoever you feel like you can talk to about that sort of thing. And if there isn't anyone in your life who you feel you can, there are groups out there who you can talk to who will be more than ready to listen and to help you heal.
I feel like the conversation we had today has been very important to have. I wanted to talk to you a hell of a lot more about the things that are coming up in your near future, which I feel like I'd like to sit down with you again, and we'll open up that conversation to your future. We've discussed your past. We've discussed some of the major milestones within your life.
We didn't even get to talk much about the music, because
but
you and I do like to chat.
yeah. That's why you're a perfect guest to be on here. So yeah, let's come back to this.
Yeah, if we didn't have to be out of here, we'd probably be here until like 6 p.m. or something.
Yeah, because there's another group coming into this venue next. But I wanted to hear some new music from you as well.
Yeah,
So
totally.
if you don't mind sharing some new music to play us out,
absolutely,
that would be wonderful. And we'll do Dan Thomas Part 2 in a few weeks' time, perhaps.
Looking forward to coming back.
Yeah.
This was great.
Nice.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Dan.
Cheers, dude.
Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, sir. Looking good yourself. Okay, cool. Hey everyone, I'm Dan Thomas. This is a song I wrote called "Is It Enough Yet?" I wrote this about the fact that as a musician, I'm constantly trying to get my music out in front of people with varying levels of success. You look around at all the other creative types you know on social media, and you see people who are doing this gig and that festival. They got that album coming out, and I'm like, who am I not talking to? You know, like, whose door am I not knocking on? But obviously it's all down to social media, and everyone's putting their best self out there. And obviously if you're comparing yourself with all your flaws to everyone's like curated perfect version of themselves, then you're going to come up short. And even though I know all of that intellectually, I still get sucked in by it, and it still hurts. So this is a song I wrote about that. Is it enough yet? I'm climbing up the walls, I'm crawling on the ceiling, I'm looking round inside this heart to find a sense of feeling like I'm living up to all of that potential, not just sitting idly by, being inconsequential. I'm waking in the morning, I'm hoping that today I start to find the tools I need to finally be okay and start to live my life in the way that I deserve, and hoping come the afternoon I somehow warm my nerve. How am I expected to keep up every single day when all of these obstacles keep getting in the way? I'm only human after all, no, not a Superman, but I'm moving forward nonetheless, just doing what I can. I'm looking at my peers, I'm wondering how I stack up. I find myself wanting at it, always gets my back up. Everybody gliding by, lighter than a feather, whilst I'm still at the start trying to get my shit together. Say it's not a race, but I feel so far behind. I keep on getting tripped up by these hurdles in my mind. Is anybody out there? Is anyone keeping score? I'm feeling like I've lost before I'm even at the door. How am I expected to keep up every single day when all of these obstacles keep getting in the way? I'm only human after all, no, not a Superman, but I'm moving forward nonetheless, just doing what I can. Is it enough yet? 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 How am I expected to keep up every single day when all of these obstacles keep getting in the way? I'm only human after all, no, not a Superman, but I'm moving forward nonetheless, just doing what I can. Is it enough yet? Is it enough yet? Is it enough yet? Is it enough yet?
That was the BTS Creative Academy podcast, Uncut. I appreciate you joining us for this conversation. If you'd like to drop into more conversations, just search the BTS Creative Academy podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. And to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, don't forget to like and subscribe.